The little life that I've lived, there are not so many people that are millionaires that are kind, have humility, and are willing to help other people to also be independent in their own dreams and achieve very big things. Now, this is where Simon Squibb comes in. So I read his book, which is What is Your Dream? And I'm here to give you a full review of this very particular book that he read. Now, if you don't know who Simon is, so for me personally, I landed on him by pure chance. The algorithm on TikTok just recommended me his video, and I saw this guy. He was on the street asking people questions about what is their dream and offering money just to get a reply, just to know what someone else's dream is. And you'd be surprised by the amount of people that he interviewed and the ones that you really wanted to help. So I was very interested in him, and I'm like, this is really, really interesting. This is something that I need to see more on my algorithm. So as you can see, he just looks like this crazy guy on the streets asking people questions with a microphone, and a lot of people are just like, oh, you're filming? No thank you, I'm gonna run away. It's like someone has told them that, guess what, the government is looking for you, or you have committed a crime, we've come to collect you. It's just a question. What is your dream? So anyways, I picked up his book that is What is Your Dream? Find Your Passion, Love Your Work, Build a Richer Life. So before we go any further in this video, I want to mention something. Regardless of who Simon is, I am going to be reviewing this book as an independent sort of situation. What I mean by that is that we're going to separate who Simon is and look at the book for what it is, for the information that's been written, for what it's saying is going to deliver. There is someone that I read a quote from, some famous person, I can't remember who his name is. He says every single time when he buys a book, he always takes the cover off the book because he wants to read the book for what that book is, regardless of who the author is, who that person has been marked on that book. Okay, so I am going to be reviewing this book for someone out there who picks up this book in the bookshelf that has never seen Simon, doesn't know who Simon is, but I've just seen the title of this book and said, you know what, I want to pick up this book because it's talking about dreams and maybe it could ignite something in myself. So let us go further and review this book. Those who don't know who I am, my name is Lucia Kao. I personally review books, read books for you so you don't really have to, tell you what I think about the book, and you use that information for your own benefit. But always remember something, the way you receive information and the way you interpret information is different. I've read the book and I've interpreted it maybe different for your own experience. So don't take my word as a literal book or as a literal statement. Always try it out as an experiment and see, okay, what she said, is it the same feeling that I have? Because one of the important things that Simon said in this book, he said that question everything. Every information is given to you, question it. He even said, question my book. Question it. You have to be in a position whereby you have to ask, you have to question everything. Don't just take things for the way things are and go on like that. Anyways, before we get into this book promises you that it's going to help you find your passion, love your work, build a richer life. This book will stop you from giving up on your goals and starting building the life that you want. Now, one thing about this book is that at the back of this very particular book, he has recommendations from different other people that I kind of recognize the names. One is Abdaal. He says that the book I recommend if you want to start to grow a business. Now, we're going to talk about that statement because the other one is Inspiring Stuff. Simon inspires you to follow your dreams without fear. This is Jamie Oliver. Now, he's got a section in the book as well that has been, talked about him in terms of inspiration. Then the other one is Lewis, and I know him because of a podcast. I think it's the School of Thought or something like that. I've listened to his podcast. Guys, I listen to a lot of things, so don't judge me on that. He says, if you have a dream to start a business, then make this book your first step. Okay. Then the other one is John Caldwell and his Phones for You. I'm not very familiar with him, but I'm familiar with Phones of You, and I've also listened to a podcast by Steve Ballard whereby he was on there, and it was very interesting how he started the business and scaled the business. Anyways, he says a must read for any would-be entrepreneurs keen to turn their business dreams into reality. So with all that said, I will be telling you at the end of this particular video which statement at this back really talks about this book, because some of these here I don't know if they really read the book, but yeah, let's just talk about that. Anyways, Starting from chapter 1. Now in chapter 1, he introduces himself, a little bit of who he is. He gives you a background story that his father passed away and he was living with his mom, and things were not going well because I think they were both in a situation or in an environment of pain, and they were all not in a position whereby I think they could support each other. But imagine there's a 15-year-old child. What do they know any better? They're relying on their parents and mom and all that kind of thing. So at 15 years old, his mom kicked him out, packed his things, left the house, and he became homeless on the streets of London. He was just moving about with nothing, literally, a 15-year-old child. He also talks about the aspect of that he was bullied as well, and in the aspect of being bullied, he was bullied for not being great at everything, not being good at a lot of things, and further down the line he realizes that he's dyslexic, and that's literally what happened, and that in one way or another became his superpower along the lines in the book. You have to read the book to see how it became his superpower, but I can just hint he used that to kind of get to do things in school without actually doing the traditional way that everyone else could do something in school. The very start of the book, which is part 1, he talks about why dream, and then he talks about the myth of life, and in this myth of life it has subsections of what myths of life is talking about. So he starts off by saying that one of the myths of life is something that I have always been conditioned to think, and I think you who is watching has been conditioned to think, is that you study hard, you work hard, you save, maybe you have a small business, you finish that, you get a little bit of money, you start going on holidays, you desire to be in Thailand, you desire to be the Caribbeans, just on a white sand beach and enjoying yourself, and then that's it. So he puts here in a statement and he says that at first you don't notice what is missing. Okay, you spend some of your money you have made, a nice house, the car you've always wanted, the big holidays that you had always been off because of the business, you play golf, sit in a hot tub and tell yourself that this is the life. For a while you believe it, then it hits you. Every person who ever said that money doesn't buy happiness, they were right. I had always thought that it sounded trite or tricked. Having started with nothing, I have worked to the point where I had both plenty of money and the freedom it brings. So basically, essentially what he's saying, that you work so hard, you get what you want, and then you sit down one day on that sandy beach, under the sun, and you think to yourself, what next? I've hit everything. I have the millions in the bank account. What is going to happen? And that is where a lot of rich people say that money doesn't buy happiness. But I strongly believe money does not buy happiness, but money buys the comfortability. Money makes me not think about or worry about if my parent or if my mom or if my dad or if my brother and sister was sick, worried about how much I'm going to pay for the bills or how much treatment they can get. Money will allow me to give them private treatment if I could. Money can allow me to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going somewhere on a holiday and I'm going to enjoy myself without worrying. I'm a bit, stressed. It makes you live comfortable, but it doesn't buy you that kind of happiness that you're seeking for, because that part of happiness that you're seeking for is purpose. And throughout the book, there is a section that he talks about purpose, which is very, very powerful. He says, on page 14 of this book, he says that before you actually dream, before you have a dream, before you desire to start that dream, you need to do this. He says, before we properly engage with the idea of the dream, first we have to get all this baggage out of the way. We need to deprogram ourselves of some of the most common and often most harmful ideas that have been handed down to us, the ones that we were told never to question, which explains why one of my mantras in life is that you should question everything. Remember what I said? And that includes what I'm telling you here. These myths will kill your dream unless you learn to identify, reject, and overcome them. Now, the idea of that is that before you actually have a dream, before you can make your dream become fulfilled, before you actually think, oh my God, I have a dream, you need to kind of debunk certain myths that have been conditioned to you. Myth number 1 is that the harder I work, the luckier I get. There is no such thing as working hard and you get lucky. I will just put it here that is all about working smart rather than being lucky. In that, he says that my greatest success came when I wasn't working hardest. I had my best ideas for business, went on holiday, and my mind was not thinking about the company. I made the most money in Fluid's final years. Fluid is, his company. When we bought someone else in to run the business and took a backseat. And in every business I have run, results have improved as I have learned to delegate important jobs to good people. This is a very key important aspect. And if you are a YouTuber or you're creative, lots of us kind of want to scale to be cheap, to do things in a very cheap way. There is, as you go along the book, towards the book, it talks about this idea of starting poor. And you can tell I have read this book to the end. I can even tell you where the chapters are. Oh my God. Anyways, there's this chapter where he talks about starting poor, and in this part whereby he's talking about, you know, having other people to work for you and delegating tasks is so important. Know what you're good at, be good at that, and what you're not good at, give it to somebody else to do it for you. That is what they call working smart and not working hard. The quote that got me in here was that sometimes things are as simple as you want them to be and as hard as you want them to be too. So myth number 2 is failure means disaster, and this one is kind of like a very good self-explanatory, where we always know that once I failed at something is the end, but people don't understand that failure, you come from a point of experience. When you failed something, you're coming from a point of experience of knowledge, experience of knowing, experience of the industry, experience in whatever you're doing. Now I highlighted here as much as you can see. This is, you know, this is how I read my books. And for anyone who wonders, I do kind of write notes as well at the bottom, or anywhere, or highlight. I intensively read books. I think maybe it's one time I should just be an editor, if I could. But I want to mention here something they say. We are all told to believe that there is something wrong about getting it wrong. That failure is an embarrassment, a dirty secret to hide away, proof that we are stupid and lacking in talent, that we will never be good enough. It is persuasive, coercive idea, one that encourages us to give up on our dreams before we have even started. Now, I want to say this statement here based on the fact that in school, we are graded. Our worthiness, our being enough, or being intelligent and smart is graded according to the marks that you get in school. The higher the marks, the 80%, 70%, 90%, it means that you're smart. And then whoever gets a 40%, 30%, it means that they're not smart enough, they're stupid. Now, a lot of kids being put in a program or in a situation or in an institution that tells them that since you've got 30%, it means that you're not good enough. You would notice that those children start to believe that, those kids start to believe that. If you're to put kids in an environment whereby you tell them, you're all great, you all got 80%, you all got 70%, they'll start seeing themselves as equals. When you condition children in schools and environments and you tell them that, you know what, you're going to do this test, and if you can't do this test properly, then you're not going to be good enough. Now, there's a very good example that Simon gives somewhere around the book. I can't remember the chapter. He says this, that when he was in school, they had a book they had to read. Forgive me if I can't remember what the name of the book was, but it was Gen I think it was Gen I. I am good at this. Anyways, I think it was Gen I, and he knew he couldn't read this book and pass whatever it was. So what he did is that he interviewed all the other, classmates in his school, and he used their interviews as a way to write this essay, and he passed it. He passed it with an A. Now, what I'm trying to explain to you is that some children in school, it has gotten a little bit better now, but back in the day when I was studying, things like ADHD or dyslexia, well, mine maybe has come out, was not something that was highly recognized, was something that wasn't really taught so much. And with me saying that, it means that a lot of kids back in the day, you are not good in school, you are not good in school. Whether you had a problem, you didn't have a problem, you were just not good in school. But understanding your superpower. So he knew that I can't do this the way they want me to do it. If I can do it this way, probably I can pass it. And then he did, which is a very, very good thing. So it sort of teaches you things when it comes to failure. Sometimes people failing and thinking that they're failures comes from a very young age. One of the statements he says that here is that success is heaven and failure is hell. Okay? He gives an example of Jamie Oliver, and I did not know this about Jamie Oliver. I literally highlighted a whole huge section here where he says that Jamie Oliver, he was successful. I'm just paraphrasing through everything. He had one of the most catastrophic business failures of recent years. In 2019, his business empire collapsed. He had put his money into administration, and for those who don't know what administration is, it's like literally a process of closing down the business. It's like have a background in business law because my degree is in law, and I did law and I did my master's in law. And one of the things that you study when you're doing your master's is the process in which you can, when you're dissolving a company. And part of it is when you go into administration. That's why you hear a lot of things in news that says this company is going to administration. Administration doesn't necessarily mean that this business has died. Another business can come and buy off that business before it actually gets dissolved, if that makes sense. Sorry for debunking a lot of my law experience there, but literally he went into that. He lost lots of restaurants. Now for him, it's not all about losing restaurants, it's about the people that he employs that he's going to lose as well. And also the very first restaurant that I think he opened up, he also lost that. Imagine your first baby, you're losing your very first child, gone, you know. And after that, years later, brought himself up, picked himself back, and, you know, launched a lot of other successful businesses. Then he says that in the whole chapter is trying to explain to you that you can use failure to your advantage. You can't let failure be the thing that stops you. When you start by saying to yourself that I'm gonna fail, just don't try. Because failure is going to be part of your journey. Failure is part of where you're going in life. And you have to understand that, you have to master that, and you need to know that it's part of the growth of your business. You are going to fail. You are going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. It is inevitable. There is no amount of waiting, amount of, perfecting that is going to prepare you for when you fail, for mistakes. It's not going to shield you from failure. It's not going to shield you from mistakes. You still fail. You still make mistakes in one way or another. That is life. He talks about myth number 3, is it okay to avoid hard things? Now this very particular topic, it has a lot of things here that is written, but let me read something as well. I read through the book so you can have an understanding of what exactly is going on. It says, as humans, we learn through experience and we go through adversity. The hardest times of our lives are often the ones that really shape us. We don't want life to be hard all of the time, but we do need it to be hard some of the time. Without those knocks, we don't grow as people, develop the confidence that is born of resilience, or prepare ourselves to tackle the most important challenges of life. Now, there is this notion of the Gen Zs of this generation that, you know, they say that, you know, you have to avoid the hard things, you have to walk easy. Like everything has been overly simplified, that our brains are not working to the capacity that they should work. Our brains have the capacity to work the hardest that they can work, to do hard things. We as human beings, we are creatures of adaptation. We adapt in harder situations. You think you will not survive in the Sahara, but let me tell you, your body will learn to adapt in the Sahara for a certain period of time. Of course, you won't survive for a year or 6 months or something, but your body will adapt. You'll find that the things that you thought were not normal, that you cannot adapt to, you will absolutely adapt to. But you need to understand that the hard things are also good things. You know, there are times where hard things allow you to become the better version of yourself. That is myth number 2. Myth number 3, that he talks about. Now, there are lots of things here that I kind of like highlighted, but we're not going to go through everything. I'm just reading through chapters that I really love, and go ahead and pick up the book and read every single thing, but I'm just giving an idea of what the book is about. So then he says myth number 4 is possessions make you happy. He talks about the fact that he wanted his dream car. He got his dream car and he found out that his dream car was the most expensive thing. He was worried about scratches, worried about the repairs, worried about everything. And then he comes to an understanding that you worry not about life you are living, but the kind of place you are living in. That is when you understand that possessions have taken over you, that you are so into this kind of sort of possession thing. So throughout the book, he does also give examples of the people that he has interviewed, and examples of the kind of dreams they've talked about, or the people that haven't spoken, or some people that have had a dream and for some reason they have disappeared, or he hasn't had anything from them. Because there is a part in the chapter whereby he talks about, I think I'm talking about a lot of things here, where he talks about the aspect of like sometimes if you don't get rid of the past baggage, it still follows you in the present, and it can't allow you to dream because your past is still dragging you behind. So he says sometimes you have to clear that up in order for you to move forward and let go of the things that are acting as your obstacle. He says inside of each of us is a lazy person, a self-doubting person, a jealous and an insecure person. Lacking a purpose makes it all too easy to give into these negative voices. So every single day, whether you like it or not, I don't care, whether you wake up in the morning and you do meditation, whether you wake up in the morning and you're like the most positive person, negative thoughts do come into your life. They do come in. Me too. I sometimes think negatively about a lot of things, but it says that having no purpose makes it too easy to think about those negative things. For example, the aspect of like you can never be enough. Now, if you're someone without purpose, definitely you'll think every day and every night that you can never be enough. You'll never be enough. You'll never amount to anything. And it's okay to think like that. And he says it's not. He says that having a purpose doesn't just help you to feel better about your life and what you are doing, it also allows you to do more. Like a runner with carbon plates in shoes versus one with weights tied onto them. When you carry on reading the book, he also talks about when he interviews a lot of people, there's certain things that so many people do say out loud about the reason as to why they can't dream, the reason as to why they don't have a dream. And he talks about it's very important to have a dream, that a dream is something that drives your life, drives you to actually be better and independent. Lots of people feel like they're trapped in their jobs, they can't come out of their jobs, they feel like they don't have enough money, they feel like, you know, because of the past experience in their lives, they cannot dream and they can't become that person that they really want to become. Then in the book itself, he goes ahead and talks about these sort of 7 steps. He talks about, you know, this idea of every single time when he goes up with the microphone, he asks people what their dream is and what actually stops them from being their dream. Some of the answers are kind of like, I don't have time, you know, to pursue the dream. The other one is I'm trapped. The other one is I don't need it. I'm worried about what people will think. And then step number 7 is I've tried this before. So now I just want to say something right here, okay, because I did say the first part of this book I'm going to be talking about what I think about the book, and then we get into the other part. So we're going into part 2. Now this is what I feel about part 1. And Simon, if you ever watch this or you ever get a chance to watch this, and I'm just going to say this in the best possible way. Chapter 1, it took me a long time. It was absolutely pushing and draining. I know it's like his whole hard work that he has done for the last 30 years all in one book, but honestly I struggled so much because everything was completely mixed up, and I will talk about that when I talk about the review of what I think about the book. But for me it was very, very, very heavy. I've just kind of debunked some of the things that I can talk about. So we go into part 2. Part 2, he talks about the 3 questions that you have to ask. The first question is, what are my likes and my dislikes? A lot of people know what their likes are, but we struggle with knowing what our dislikes are. But when you understand what your dislikes are, it's easier for you to scale a lot of things and understand how you can get better at a certain thing and how you can sort of outsource the other thing. The other things that you can't do well. The second question, it says, what is my pain? And this very question, when it came to what is my pain, it reminded me of choose your hard. What hard do you want in life? The other one, step 4, is I don't know what. And in here I highlighted, it said, of course it's possible that your dream is something completely outside your current life experience. You may be longing to travel the world because you have hardly ever left this country, or to make music even if you have never tried before. But for many of us, the dream is closer than that. It's related to something that is already in our life, a different and better version of what we already doing. You may work as a server and want to open your own restaurant. Perhaps you play in a band at weekends and really want to start your own business. The chapter that I enjoyed reading was in part 3, which is follow that dream. Okay. And for me, that chapter was about starting poor. What reminded me of a lot of things, you know. But let me read some of the things I obviously enjoyed. One of them is that whatever your dream may be, I promise that you can either make money from doing it or you will find a way to fund it. Whatever people try to tell you, your passion can be a serious business and your dream can become a proper job. Okay. Then it says, why do we need to start poor? Why am I telling you to think poor and act cheap when you start this business? Essentially, he's telling people start cheap, start poor, and start, you know, in that kind of perspective. One important aspect that I want you to take away from this book that I'm going to mention to you, he says that, let me just read it out to you, because from my head, it's sort of like when you're selling a product, you're not only selling a product, but you're also selling yourself. So essentially it says the question to what you sell sounds simple, but there is often a nuance. You may think that you are just selling a pair of shoes, a piece of jewelry, or a recipe kit, but a product is rarely just a product. People want to know who made it and what inspired them. They want to know your story, which means you are selling yourself as well as your creation. That is in aspects of like starting a business and understanding what a product is and going through that whole situation. So I made big notes on here. He talks about if you're going to start a business and you want to scale something and you want to go further, he gives examples of why you should get started for free. He says, a few decades ago, you would have started a business by renting an office, having a telephone line installed, even hiring a secretary. Today, you can set up that business from a laptop you already own, using the internet connection you're already paying for, and harnessing the online services that connect you to the whole world at the touch of a few buttons. That's what I mean by starting poor. You don't have to spend a lot of money to make your business real. Now, this whole chapter is very businessy. It talks about a lot of business aspects, and he gives an example here that with one of his first customers at Fluid, he agreed to do work for free. Now, when he talks about work for free, that is something that will trigger a lot of people, because a lot of people are not willing to work for free for a certain period of time to build that clientele, to go into the aspect of delayed gratification. However, down the line in the book, he explains that he did talk about the aspect of working for free, but you need to understand who is your most valuable customer. Which customer do you know that if you work for them for a certain period of time for free, they are going to give you the value back in your company. It's good to work for free, but again, you have to pay bills, and again, you have to survive. So it's always being smart and understanding who can you work for free, knowing that they will give you return into that business, and who can you be like, no, I can't work for free. But it says you have to be humble enough for your first time to actually do things for free. There is an example that he actually gives, or what I got from myself. He says that, for example, if you want to start a cleaning business, why not knock on people's doors and tell them, hey, my name is this and that, I have this company, I clean windows, I can come and clean your windows for free. Clean the windows, no obligation, for free. Leave and just say to them, you know what, give my card to your neighbors or any friends or anybody that you see around. I will really appreciate it. What you get from this, the value that you get from this, is that 9 times out of 10, that person that you've done that service for free is going to talk about you over and over again, and is going to recommend you. Just out of a free service, you're going to get something more beneficial out of it. So you have to look at the bigger picture than less of it. In that very particular chapter as well, he says that so many of us create this aspect of like, you are a small business acting like the big dogs. You are a small business but acting like you have already been in this industry for a very long time. He says start humble, start small. He gives an example in Hong Kong where they started the business, how he's had this office, you know, they refurbish it, they put all those fancy things within the office, but there are only 2 people who are occupying that office. And at the end of the day, the business died and everything died. But he says that you have to start as simple, as humble, as poor as you can get, upscale yourself, and then there's going to be a time in your business whereby you sort of think to yourself, I think this is where we have to kind of like increase on everything, you know, that is going on. Normalize doing things for people for free. Normalize, you know, giving any kind of value in any possible way. There are lots of people that do videos that I do or stuff that I do right now that would actually ask you to subscribe, or would ask you to pay for it, or would ask you, if you want to know my opinion, you have to give me something in return. But it says, you know what, but I say that I want to give value to everybody. I want to be the person that has first-hand information with these books and helps you understand and also encourage you. If you notice something, I don't not only review the books, I also give you practical sort of advice that I've got from the book. It's easy to come and say it's a good book, it's a bad book. I give it a 3 stars. This is how the cover is, this is how it looks like. But it's also important if I give you the value that I've got out of this, so you can use it for your own personal self, if that makes sense. So we're carrying on in the book, we're scrolling through, and I had an extensive, you know, amount of writing that I did on here, and this was my best chapter. And the reason as to why I said this was my best chapter, I wrote down things like starting poor, knowing your needs rather than your wants, avoiding acting like a multimillionaire business when you are a startup like one does. Okay, it says know your customers. When you're thinking of your customers, be specific and, you know, on what kind of customer you have. So this was very, very, very profound. So he said that knowing your customer, you have to be specific at what customer you are going to have in your business. He gave an example of I think Ferrari. And bear with me, let me just scroll back and see. Yeah, he gave an example of Ferrari where it says Ferrari doesn't want to sell cars to parents doing the school run, for example. That's because their brand is about luxury and exclusivity. For the same reason, you will never see Volvo sponsoring a Formula One team. Their cars are about keeping your family safe, not how fast they can go from, you know, one point to another. That's very important. It's like you need to understand who your ideal customer is. Who are you selling to? What person, when you open up your business, you look around and you know, okay, those are my customers. Those are the people that I'm selling my brand to or my product to. It's as important as anything else that you can imagine. So he says, if you want to start a business, you have a dream, always know who your ideal customer is. And I always struggled with this, especially when I say doing these reviews of self-improvement books. I struggle to understand who is going to be the person that listens to my sort of videos, and I understood that it's going to be someone who wants to get into self-help books. So it's going to be someone who has picked up a book and wants to understand, is this book good? Can I read this book? What's the understanding around this book? It's those people that are curious, who want to know and are looking for somebody else who has had the experience of having that particular thing, if that makes sense. So that would be kind of like who my ideal customer is. So I really enjoyed this chapter, and you go further down the line, it talks about how to grow rich. I'm just scrolling through the other chapters. Then it says find brilliant people, and I think this is the key to any business or to anything that you want to start in life, even to just your normal general life. And it says that the people you do business with matter more than almost anything. So now let's get to the part whereby we actually review the book, the part that you're most interested about or you've been watching and waiting to get to. So the book itself, I love the cover of this book. Whoever designed this book, perfect. They designed the color. I gravitated towards this color. It's like this is the best book I've got in terms of color that I absolutely really love. I love the pink, I love the black, I love the graphics to it. It feels pretty. It's really, really a good book. Now, I'm going to tell you the honest truth about this book. First of all, I rate this book a 3.5 star. The reason as why I'm rating it this is that the first chapter one, really great chapter, talking about the dream and what he does, what he does, and he goes on the street. It's about, you know, give without tech. I think that's the hashtag it goes for, which is really, really important. Not very easy to digest, and I'm saying this because it was dragging. I felt like I was being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed over and over again to just keep reading and keep reading, keep reading. I didn't feel the ease to get to the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter. There is no flow to the book, and you may think, okay, Lucy, that's not very important. But when you're reading a book, especially books like this, when it comes to entrepreneurship, books that are very touch and dear to people's heart, you need to ease people into the next chapter and the other chapter. One of the good books that is very good, that did that very well, was the 33 Laws of Business by Steve Ballard. In that very particular book, the flow of the book is so interesting that you want to flip the next page, the next page, and the next page, and the next page. This book was very hard. The idea of why you want to dream and what your dream is was like a huge chunk of the book compared to all the other chapters, which is not a bad thing, but I struggled so much. The other part of the book that I struggled so much to understand is that, Simon, if you ever watch this has nothing to do with you as a person. It's just the writing itself that I have a little bit of the problem with, and the story within the book. So his whole story and his whole journey is all over the place within the book. And I'm saying this because this is why I struggle so much with entrepreneurship books, is that there is the you that started from where you are at the lowest point to the you that has become the millionaire. Then there is a gap in between. You need to fill in that gap. And why I say you need to fill in that gap, or why I talk about filling in that gap, is reason being is that, okay, gardening, he did all the gardening business and stuff, knocked on the door, you know, saw a house and was like, oh my God, I can help, did whatever he did, you know, got half of the payment. And he also always talks about, when you're getting paid, make sure that you have like half of the payment. How do you call it? Like if you're charging £300, make sure they pay 150, and then after the work they give the other 150, which is absolutely good. You get to understand bits and bits of Simon here and there. They are scattered. So after you were 15, you were homeless, you were sleeping wherever you were sleeping. How did you get yourself to find a place that you lived in? What dream did you have at that time? How did you get to that dream? What was your first business that you might have started? Where did you work? Did you save to start your business at that age? Did you get any money? Did you get a loan? Like, how did you actually get to where you you go, yes, you talk about the Ferraris, yes, you talk about how you're helping people, yes, you talk about how you're allowing people to get to their dream, but let us ease into you and understand who you are. First chapter, not much about it. It's more stories about the people that's interviewed and a little bit about his childhood life, and then you get into the next chapter and then he hints here and here. It's when I got towards the end of the chapter that I understood Helen, that was his business partner, was his wife and also the mother of his children. That's the point when I understood that. All this time I was thinking Helen is just a business partner, which is a smart move because you have to look at it as a business partner because it's a business book rather than a wife and a mum. It's not a memoir or something like that, which is quite good. And then towards the end of the book, he starts to ease in a little bit and talk about himself a little bit and talk about his experience a little bit. Because these stories are very important, especially when it comes to a business perspective to young people that you're trying to educate and make them understand your story a little bit more. That's the point at which it creates a connection between you, the person that is trying to let people have their dream, and you, the person that came from barely nothing. Well, when you look at Simon, he's just that person that you look at and you're like, he dresses even in a humble way. What you don't understand, it is a marketing and a power move for him to dress in the jumpers that he dresses in or the trousers, the clothes that he dresses in. It's a power move because a lot of millionaires will not dress like that. It's the relatability, the connection between him and people. That was just a side note. Let's get back into this aspect of like the gap. So I want to know those aspects of like, did you work? I know he worked in a restaurant or a hotel at some point as well. When he explains in the book, I need to understand how much were you earning in the hotel, what made you leave, at what point did you say, okay, I've got this amount of money, I can start from here, I can start small. I know you decided to go to Hong Kong and all that. What was the aspect, what was the help, where did you get it from? You talk about community. Show us how that community was there for you at that point that helped you scale to that point that you got to. So for me, that aspect of all that was missing. So the whole entire book, chapter 1, I was just like, okay, cool, let's just carry on because I've committed to read the book. Carried on, reading the book, and then towards the end of the book, that's when the business part comes in. So if you're expecting to know more about business and understand more about business and entrepreneurship, I tell you this, part 1, part 2 are not for you. It's part 3. Part 2 hints on it, and then part 3 is a part that you get into. Is it part 3 or part 2? How many parts are there? Yeah. Towards the last part is where you kind of understand aspects of like the entrepreneurship side of it, the community building, the starting pool, understanding what business to start, how to market yourself, how to start small, how to get things done. He talks about these two twins that wanted to start cleaning, how they use social media as a platform to help them, because he says not all businesses can grow through social media. Some of them are just to give you an eye out and all that kind of thing. Some of them you have to knock on doors. Some of them you just have to bargain, with the business itself in a physical form, which is quite good. So you get all that knowledge and that aspect towards the end of the book. But the beginning of the book is just not as great as I expected it to be. I had high expectations of the book. And for me, when I come to review books, it takes me a lot to actually say that the book was not what I expected. And that's just my personal thing. The other thing I had a problem with was that at the end of the book, Ali Abdaal made a comment and he said, the book I recommend if you want to start and grow your business. Ali Abdaal is obviously this productivity person. I've watched him. I reviewed this book last year. In January, it came out as well. It was really a good book. The writing style was very different and the approach to productivity was very different. I know I am saying so many things at the same time and rapping. He said how to grow your business. That is not actually true. I recommend if you want to start and grow your business. It doesn't tell you how to start a business and how to grow a business. It gives you tips when you're already starting or when you already have a dream and how you want to scale that dream. So that comment didn't sit well with me. And also in the other one, the one that I find truthful is inspiring stuff. Simon empowers you to follow your dreams without fear. That is absolutely true. That's the theme of the book, which I love. Louis said, if you have a dream to start a business, then make the book your first step. Nope. It's not your book that you can get if you want to start a business. It's your book that can give you motivation a little bit to understand your dream and maybe understand a few things of hiring people, knowing your community and, branding a little bit. And then John on the book, he says that a must read for any would-be entrepreneurs keen to start their business dreams into reality. Not true. I'm sorry, Simon. I absolutely love what you do. I love the idea of helping people and starting their dreams and achieving whatever they want to achieve. But this book didn't really hit the mark for me like I really wanted to. And I'm really, really sorry. This does not make you a different person. And I'm not trying to get anything good or say anything good. I'm going to get into the stitch for actually. talking about this because I know how many people he has helped, and I may get the most negative comments out of so many people, but that's okay. This is why I'm here. I'm here to review these books, and I'm here to tell you what I think about them. You can pick up the book and you have your own opinion and come back and tell me, hold on, Lucy, you're absolutely wrong. And then we can have a discussion. But apart from that, this is what I thought about this book, and that is just my opinion. So with that being said, I am going to end this video here and tell you thank you so much for watching. Watch out for the next book that I'm going to be reading, because I am going on to the next book that was published the same day that Simon's book was published, so I need to read that and review it as well for you guys. Keep an eye out on my community tab. I do post the books that I'm reading and everything else. So thank you so much for watching. My name is Lucy Akau. Bye bye.